how did the very first Judeo-Christian scholars actually react when Islam suddenly burst onto the scene? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into some incredibly rich historical source material to uncover the strict, uncompromising lens through which early apologists viewed the origins of the Islamic faith. We're talking about deep, foundational theology here, evaluating history right through the eyes of the people who lived it. To keep things perfectly clear, here is our roadmap for this explainer. We've got 4 sections: early Christian views of Islam, the Antichrist theological argument, defining a false prophet, and finally, evaluating supernatural revelations. All right, let's jump right into section 1, early Christian views of Islam. So, according to historical Christian apologetics, St. John of Damascus, who was actually the first great Christian apologist to engage directly with Islam, didn't look at this movement and see a brand new world religion. Not at all. Instead, he classified it in his writings as the heresy of the Ishmaelites. You see, he firmly considered Islam a Christian heresy, an aberration of the existing faith, rather than something entirely new. And this really brilliantly illustrates the academic theological lens John was operating through. He literally placed Islam right into his comprehensive book of Christian heresies, grouping it with older, established theological disputes. He didn't view it as a completely foreign entity, but as a competing system of doctrines that claimed to be true, yet totally contradicted established Orthodox teachings. What's wild is how specifically John unpacks these critiques. He noted that Muhammad was reportedly influenced by an Arian monk. This meant he saw the religion as being influenced by Arianism and other forms of heretical beliefs that denied the full divinity of Christ. John even went so far as to argue Muhammad was a forerunner of the Antichrist. And while Muslims accused Christians of being associators for associating Jesus with God, John flipped it, calling them mutators, because in his view, they were mutating the Trinity by separating God from his uncreated Word and Spirit. That brings us right to section 2, the Antichrist theological argument. The sources point out that the Apostle John provided a crystal-clear litmus test in the biblical epistles, and it wasn't about some Hollywood villain. It was strictly doctrinal. By definition, the Antichrist is anyone who denies the relationship of the Father and the Son. So here is the crucial clash. Historical apologists categorized Muhammad and the Islamic faith under the Antichrist label for one simple reason. The Quran explicitly denies the father and son relationship that the Gospel and the epistles affirms. With Surah 4 and Surah 5 strictly warning against calling Jesus the Son of God or believing in the Trinity, early apologists saw this as literally fulfilling the biblical definition of an Antichrist. Now, we are just looking neutrally at the historical data here. But from an apologetic standpoint, this direct doctrinal conflict strikes at the very heart of the gospel. Apologists basically concluded that the underlying objective of these new texts was precisely to undo the established message and mission of Jesus Christ. Moving along, let's hit section 3, defining a false prophet. When we put the texts side by side, the apologetic argument really snaps into focus. The biblical test of a prophet requires absolute alignment with prior revelation. The New Testament teaches that Jesus fulfilled the law, right? He ushered in an era of grace where things like dietary restrictions were lifted. But apologists argue Islam regresses back to a rigid legalism. By bringing back strict dietary laws like halal, they argue it actively reverses the freedom of the new covenant. Furthermore, we have to look at Jewish tradition. Based on the Jewish tradition of abrogating the Jewish law according to the Midrash and according to the Torah in Deuteronomy 18, any prophet who attempts to lead the nation to abrogate the established covenant fails the ultimate prophetic test. So based strictly on these ancient parameters, historical apologists firmly categorize Muhammad as a false prophet. Let's tackle our final point, section 4, evaluating supernatural revelations. This is the ultimate question historical apologists had to answer. If a prophet brings a new book and claims it was delivered by an angel, how on earth do you test the validity of that supernatural source? They did it by looking at the angels themselves. Apologists contrasted the awe-inspiring, wholly biblical appearances of angels, like the angel of Yahweh speaking from the burning bush, with the accounts of revelation in early Islam. They argued that the Quran, being a new revelation from Muhammad, from a supposed angel, is completely inaccurate to the attributes of normal angels in the biblical text. The early sources actually point out some incredible anomalies to make this case. For instance, the infamous satanic verses, where Muhammad allegedly delivered a revelation promoting polytheism, only to later be told by the angel Gabriel that Satan had tricked him. There are also multiple early accounts reporting Muhammad was the victim of black magic for an entire year, suffering from memory loss and delusions because of a spell cast on his hairbrush. Because of these bizarre, unbiblical anomalies, Christian apologists concluded that the supernatural source was entirely sinister. To them, the satanic trickery and black magic gave us a clear example that it was more likely a fallen angel or something evil pulling the strings, rather than the holy God of the Bible. Now, without taking any sides here, this explainer simply shows how intense and rigorous the historical apologetic breakdown of these texts truly was. These early scholars didn't pull any punches at all. They evaluated new claims strictly and unapologetically against the bedrock of their existing scriptures. So, I'll leave you with this final thought to ponder. If early apologists viewed these origins through such an uncompromising lens, how does understanding these ancient, foundational arguments change the way we look at comparative religion today? When you see the exact step-by-step logic they used, it really reframes modern theological discussions, doesn't it? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and keep asking those big questions.